this. It's been morning so far. I hope you all are having a great day so far. Good morning, Joy. Good morning, Luke. Good morning, Kelsey. Hope everyone's having a great day so far. So I had this picture in, and I was talking to our awesome desk and digital guy, Anders, and he was like, is the camera that you chose working? And the answer is, yeah, it actually is. The winds are still pretty blustery up toward the mountains, and so it's kind of picking up some of that snow that's on the ground in areas like Beach Mountain and kind of pulling it around. Now, officially, there was a wind advisory in effect for the mountains. It was canceled as of 10 a.m. But still, so far today, these areas up toward Boone, Jefferson have seen peak wind gusts around 43 miles per hour or so. You can see 29 for Morganton. That was really, really early. 20 for Hickory as well over towards Salisbury, Concord, and notice even Statesville got close to 30. So winds still really whipping. For the rest of this morning, they're likely going to stay in the teens to around 20. So I would say we're still breezy at times for the Charlotte area, but the wind is slowly going down for pretty much everyone. Luke, you're definitely one of the warmer spots, already 60 there for his house in Catawba County. So here was that WCNC alert for the wind advisory. Again, it was canceled as of 10 a.m., but winds this morning were up to 50 or so miles per hour. Now, as we progress through the rest of the day, it's still going to be windy up toward the mountains. I would say your peak wind gusts closer to 35 to 40 miles per hour. So that's why you still see that wind icon there. High temperatures around 52. Tonight for the mountains, your temps are going to get close to the freezing mark. I wouldn't be surprised with some lighter winds if you couldn't get closer to a little bit of patchy frost. Highs, though, tomorrow near 60. So it's going to be a fabulous, fabulous weekend, especially for the mountains on Sunday. For the rest of the Piedmont, though, we're really starting off great. I'm going to show you satellite and radar here really quickly. If you look really closely, you can kind of see some of that gray wisping in for the mountains. That's some of that low cloud cover. Oftentimes, it takes a little bit longer for those higher elevations to really get some of that drier air moving in, because a lot of that moisture kind of settles there, and that's why they've seen some lowered visibility this morning in some of those clouds. And of course, the wind surely helping to whip up some of that snow. But across the rest of the Carolinas, you see dry conditions. All the rain is well off into the Atlantic Ocean, so no worries there. Although I was watching one of my good friends, Scotty Powell. He is a meteorologist in Myrtle Beach, and I know they did still have some cloud cover, some light rain early this morning. That has since, of course, started to wrap up. Now, I had to put this in. During a normal weathercast, I would never just randomly throw in the quad box camera in like kind of the middle of the weathercast, but I just think this picture looks so great. Monroe, Kannapolis, Dallas were pretty much sunshine from start to finish, wall-to-wall sunshine this morning and into the afternoon. I really can't say anything more than it's going to be a really, truly fabulous weekend ahead. So this morning we were in the 50s. This afternoon we're in the upper 60s, close to 70. The only change between now and Sunday is that the wind is going to be much lighter tomorrow morning. So we won't have that wind, like those breezes at times. But the second thing is that it is going to be a lot colder. Lows will dip into about the upper 30s for the Charlotte area. Now 39, that's the forecast low. That is exactly where we should be this time of year. We are typically at 39 for a low and 61 for a high on March 4th. This year, of course, we're a lot warmer this afternoon, but tomorrow morning, at least, is going to be much closer to where we should be. But the above average warmth overall does continue today and tomorrow. Even though the weekend's nice and we technically are cooler and drier compared to where we have been, it is still overall warmer than average. And that is one of the reasons why the pollen levels are still going to stay elevated through today, tomorrow, and into the early half of the upcoming week. I showed this graphic on air, but it's kind of hard to explain in just a few seconds, so I'll give it to you here. Typically, the tree pollen on a normal year, you start to see those median levels around this time, so the early part of March, and then you really start to peak in that very high category in early April, with that plummet really early April to mid-May. However, this year we started seeing those pollen levels in the early to middle part of February. So we are at least 2 to 3 weeks, if not even 4 weeks earlier than average. That doesn't necessarily mean that the pollen levels are going to be over early. It may just mean that that season is extended. And this is actually a trend we've seen lately with a lot of the spring seasons and kind of the warmer weather seasons, is every year when we've started to see those warmer than average temperatures kind of go up across the globe, oftentimes it doesn't mean that the warm season is shortened. It means that, or is the same length, but it starts earlier. It actually means it's extended a little bit. So the cold season is lowered a little bit. I actually did a climate IQ on that over the summer. This was specifically talking about heat waves, but the fact that the ratio used to be 1 to 1 back in the 50s and 60s, heat waves to cold waves, whereas now it's 2 to 1 because we see so many more heat waves and cold waves. So just an interesting little factoid for you there. We need some of these colder days to kind of keep everything in a balance. I talked a little bit about this on the newscast, but we've had some emails and things like that of folks. Who aren't fans of the warmer weather. And a lot of times I think it's a normal reaction as meteorologists or just as people in general. Sometimes when it's so cold, you like when you get that warming trend. But it is a good reminder, I think, that we are cold for a reason. Oftentimes, what can happen is that when we see a really, really warm winter, things start to bloom early. Then we get a late season freeze and they die off instead of just kind of allowing them to stay hibernated through their season they're supposed to. And it can actually negatively impact agriculture. As well as just people who, deal with those things for a living, or outside for a living, things of that nature. So I think it's just an important thing to remember that warmer weather isn't necessarily always a good thing. Um, Great morning for a walk, Ted says. 56 degrees this morning, 5.5 miles. You go, Ted. The only thing I've done so far is come to work, but I've definitely haven't walked 5 miles or run 5 miles even. Good job. Luke says the morning low there was 44. That's pretty typical, Luke, based on what we saw everywhere else in Catawba County. Thank you so much as always for your reports. So let's look at the Guy Roofing 7-day because I've kind of run my mouth a little bit longer than I anticipated. Beautiful weather, Kelsey says, there in Atlanta, very similar to what we're seeing today, Kels, mid to upper 60s. So today, mid to upper 60s, drier, still a bit breezy at times this morning, but tapering off throughout the day. Tomorrow, again, we are colder to start off the day in the upper 30s, but very seasonal for early March, highs around 70. We do get a touch warmer Monday, Tuesday. But we have kind of a series of two storm systems that comes through this week. The first is a really dry and weak cold front that comes in Tuesday, Wednesday. This will likely bring us a few more clouds heading into Wednesday, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of moisture. So it's going to be pretty moisture starved. So probably the biggest influence you'll notice is between Tuesday and Wednesday is that our high goes from about the mid 70s to the low 60s. But after that, we have a second system coming in mainly Friday and into early Saturday. This will bring us another opportunity for some scattered showers, but this will also prompt that colder air we've been talking about. We've been kind of watching those trends over the past 7 to 10 days. I will tell you that a lot of the trends as of late that were showing colder temperatures as we've gotten closer to the event have trended a touch warmer. So I'm trying to go relatively conservative with these high temperatures, but it does look likely at the end of this week, so Friday and into next weekend, we will be talking high temperatures in the mid 50s and overnight lows in the upper 30s. So that would be pretty typical low temperature wise for this time of year, but those low highs would be a little bit on the cooler side. Luke saying that last year around March 11th, we had a deep freeze and it was 16 at his house and killed all the plants. Luke, that's a really good example of what we were just talking about. It's not necessarily always a good thing for those plants to start early because sometimes they die and you have to purchase new ones, or sometimes, we're talking about people's livelihoods. So thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining the stream. There again is your 7-day forecast. It is going to be a great weekend ahead. We have a lot of warmth. We have some cooler temperatures on the way. But the good news is in the next 7 days, we do not have any storms in the forecast like what we had last night. So have a safe, happy, healthy Saturday, and I will see you on Wake Up Charlotte Weekend tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. Of course, it is the, technically first weekend of March. Last Saturday of February, last Sunday of February, last weekend, kind of got away from me, and I did the math based on, keeping it consistent, because of the 28 days in February like that. I don't need to tell you all that, but so I decided to do Science Sunday this weekend. So we are going to have an awesome Science Sunday tomorrow, and Megan Bragg is actually going to be our anchor. She's fabulous, one of my good friends. So we hope to see you tomorrow morning on Wake Up Charlotte Weekend starting at 6 a.m. And of course, Science Sunday is around 9:40 in the morning. Have a great day, everyone.